Hello, I'm Donna Meltzer, CEO at Brain Injury Services located in Northern Virginia. It is September, and September means it's Concussion Awareness Month. And because it's Concussion Awareness Month, the Brain Injury Awareness Project, which is part of BIS, means that we're going to have a great conversation today with my guest, Liza Faour. Liza has experienced concussion not just once, but several times, and she is an incredible woman who has survived her concussions and really has been working hard to rebuild her life in her community and to not just do well every day, but to seriously thrive. And so I'm really excited today to bring on Liza. Liza, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here today at
Thank
Brain
you.
Injury Services for this conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for having me and inviting me.
It is my pleasure. Liza, it is, as I said, Concussion Awareness Month, and you are somebody who has experienced um, concussion. I believe that you shared with me that the most recent concussion you had was due to a hockey accident, and that was back in 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, 2020. Sorry. It's either
Yeah.
2020 or 2021, but I believe it was 2020. It was during the pandemic. So,
Yeah, well, thank you for joining us today to talk about that experience. And I think what we really want to get into today is hearing your story and understanding kind of, what happened that day, what kind of responses did you get, post your injury. And we want to be able to have our guests, our listeners, be able to learn from your experience to better understand concussion. We talk a lot about brain injury. There's different kinds of brain injury, acquired brain injury that comes through something medical, something maybe that even you've had since early in your life, or it could be a stroke or a heart attack. And of course, we talk about traumatic brain injury, which people do know a lot about, a blow to the head. But concussion is almost like a thing on its own, right? It is part of that traumatic brain injury because it is a blow to the head. But sometimes it is less severe, and so people think it's just a concussion. Let's get up off the field if we're playing a sport or off of the floor. It's a minor thing. I will recover quickly. But that's not always the case. And so we are here to educate today and to share your story and for all of us to learn from this. So let's jump in. Let's talk a little bit about your injury story. Can you take us back to that moment in whether it was 2020 or 2021? What happened that day?
sure. So what I had was I had a series of two concussions within a week of each other, and that's really what did me in. The first one, I was on the ice, took a little spill, hit my head, got back up, finished playing, and went home. Uh, I had a headache that night, felt just not myself. And the next morning went off to work, still had that headache, still just felt off. And when I went to work, I just, something wasn't right. And so I decided, well, during my lunch break, I'll go across the street to the urgent care. That was my first mistake, by the way. Anyway, so I went to the urgent care. They checked me and they said, well, they checked me, right? And they said, yeah, you probably have a mild concussion. Just get some rest. And when you're feeling better, you can resume normal activities. So I took the next day off of work. I rested a little bit and went on with my normal activities, which included getting back on the ice the following Sunday. So the first one was on, so this happened on a Sunday. And then the following Sunday, that was my next day to be back on the ice. Went back there like nothing happened, right? Ignoring the fact that I do still feel a little bit off, but not recognizing that that was really an issue. That Sunday, fell violently back onto the back of my head to the point where it cracked my helmet. I had a helmet on, I had a mouth guard in, full hockey gear. and I was knocked out for 4.5 minutes on the ice. I remember nothing of that day except for what people have told me that were there. I also saw a video of it. Um, and I went to the ER, um, and they, did lots of tests. They said, you have a concussion. Again, I don't remember anything of that day other than what people have told me. So,
Do you remember the first time that your memory came back? How
yes,
long did that take?
I remember it vividly. So I went home that day, apparently. My next memory is 2 days after the accident. 2 days. So this happened on a Sunday. I remember Tuesday. Um, and my family was in my bedroom and they were blasting the TV. And that's for some reason, that's what I remember. Now, were they really
Hmm.
blasting it? Probably not, but I was very, very sound and light sensitive. And I remember thinking, what in the world is everyone doing in my bedroom? I mean, the kids were there, my brother was there, my dogs were there, that type of thing. That's my first memory. It's a weird thing to remember, but that's my first memory.
Well, it sounds like that's
Post
kind of when
accident.
your brain was actually waking up
Yeah,
a little bit more. But
so.
did your family share with you, like during those 2 days that you really don't have any memory? What was their experience like? They must have been quite frightened at that point.
Very frightened. In fact, my kids, my teenagers still talk about it. Oh, remember, I apparently I have three children. I only remembered one of them. So she likes to bring that up often. I'm the one you remembered. so um so they were quite scared. All of them were apparently at the ER, but they had to wait outside the pandemic. So everybody was outside, and obviously quite upset. Um, and so it was very it was a traumatic experience, not only for me obviously, but for my family as well.
As you were starting to recover, you just mentioned that it was during the pandemic when we were all at home feeling quite a bit isolated. Did you feel almost doubly isolated in that you were struggling with your memory and everything that happened with this accident? And on top of it, you can't really go out and people can't really come to see you other than your family. How did that feel for you?
Well, not only could I not go out or have people over, but I couldn't even get on my screen. I couldn't just, oh,
Mm.
let me get on my laptop and, get on Facebook. And I couldn't do any of that because I was on strict, actually, there was the only strict orders I had was, oh, stay off of all electronics. So I did. I didn't touch my phone. I didn't touch anything. I didn't even watch TV. So I had, a double whammy there. There was the pandemic, couldn't even use electronics, which is what everybody else was doing, right? So
Did they give you a time limit of how long you needed to stay off of electronics?
I don't remember. To me,
Yeah,
it seemed like forever. It
sure.
really did. So what I did was I would have my children recite text messages to me and that type of thing. And it was sort of funny. They'd be like, Mom, don't look, that type of thing. So it had to have been at least a month that I was
Yeah.
off the grid, so to speak. And I'll be honest with you, my memories are very, very, very fuzzy from the first few months. I have little snippets of memory that just for whatever reason I remember certain things. Usually the bad stuff that went on. So of those first few months.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said a few moments ago about the first concussion, the week prior, that first
Right.
Sunday.
Mhm.
You said you went to an urgent care and you said that was a mistake.
Yes.
What would you do differently, and what would you recommend to others who might either experience concussion for themselves or with a family member or friend? If they do end up in an urgent care, what would be the right questions to ask or thing to say? Or if not urgent care, where would you tell them to go instead?
Yeah, I would. That's a great question. I would urge them to go to the emergency room. I think a lot of us say, oh, well, I don't want to wait. This isn't, 3 hours in the emergency room. This is not such a big deal. Well, you don't know what you don't know, right? Because it is a hidden injury. It's not, you're not walking off with a broken arm or a broken leg, which you can clearly see, and that would prompt you to go immediately to an ER, right? So they're just not, and nothing against urgent cares. I'm sure there's plenty of wonderful ones out there. However, most of them can't do a CT scan to check for a brain bleed, excuse me. That's one thing. And a lot of them just aren't trained to handle head injuries. They're going to say, oh, well, if a guy shows up at an urgent care that's been in a car accident, what are they going to do? If it's head involved, they're going to send you right to the emergency room, right? Well, nobody did that for me. They just looked me over and said, you'll be fine. So my thing would be, I would recommend if you suspect even slightly that you've been concussed, you go right to the ER.
That's really good advice. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
So let's move forward a little bit. So now you are having memories, you're a little bit aware of what happened. It's
Yeah.
pandemic and you're at home and you're trying to kind of navigate some new space. Tell us a little bit about what that felt like. How quickly were you able to just even accomplish simple tasks, maybe making a cup of coffee or taking a shower?
Yeah.
Were you able to do that quickly, or did that take some time?
It all took a lot of time and it began to unfold slowly. I didn't realize things until I attempted to do them. I have a very vivid memory early on of trying to take a shower and standing there and looking at my shower that I've had for the last 16 years. I've been in this same house, and wondering which way is the hot water. Why isn't the shower coming out from the top? Why is it only coming from the bottom? What's going? And it was very upsetting. I remember standing there in tears and then having to get dressed again and ask my daughter. And I felt so lost. I was embarrassed even to ask her, to admit I didn't know what to do. That's just one example, but there are so many. I didn't know how to operate my thermostat in the house to make it warmer or colder. The microwave, the vacuum cleaner. Didn't know what to do. Stood there and looked at it. I knew I had to plug it in. Didn't know how to turn it on. And actually, all these years later, things like that do occasionally happen to me still. So
That's fascinating. Do you remember how long it took you to regain some of that, connectivity in your brain? Like,
yeah,
when could you plug in the vacuum cleaner and know you needed to
yeah.
turn it on, or take a shower and
Um,
know where the water was coming from?
so the shower thing. So what I did with the shower was I took a Sharpie and I wrote hot and cold. That
Mhm.
was what I remember doing it, or my daughter did
Yeah.
it actually. Um, and because I remember I had that on there for a long time until I finally felt ready to take it off. So I want to say this went on for at least the first 6 months where I always had to stop and think, okay, how does this work? What do I do with the thermostat again? And I started to learn what I needed to do. And that was lots and lots. I've got them right next to me. Post-its, my best friend. Once I was able to regularly use my phone and I actually remembered how to use my phone, then I started using reminders on my iPhone more so. And I still do that to
Mhm.
this day.
Did you feel like once a memory came back, or that knowledge of how to do something, did it stick or does it come and go?
It comes and goes, but repetition is key.
Okay.
Once I got past those first maybe 6 or 7 showers, it started to sink in. This is
Yeah.
the hot, this is the cold, even though I had it labeled. Um, and then there was driving. Driving was
Mm.
a big issue for me. So for that first month, somebody would drive me somewhere all the time, which was mainly my doctor's appointments.
Right.
Um, and that was because I guess about 3 weeks after my accident, again, not realizing the severity of my injury still, I said, I can go to my rehab appointment on my own. I'll be just fine. And I got
Mhm.
into the car to drive, and I ended up pulling over on the highway in tears because I didn't know where I was going. I was able to operate my car, but I couldn't remember where I was going. Um, then once I did, and then I stopped driving for quite some time. Once I did resume driving, to this day, everything goes into my GPS. So I never can forget where I'm going. So even if I'm just going down the road to the grocery store,
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
plug it in and, that way I won't forget.
Right. I mean, technology is amazing in how it can support us through
Yeah.
so many different tasks during the day.
Yeah.
How else do you use technology even now to support your daily activities?
My calendar, my iPhone calendar, if everything that I do each day is in there, even just I set a reminder each day that it's time to pick up my son from school. I every taking medication, that all of that, everything is on my calendar. And I always joke with my family members. I say, well, if it's not on the calendar, it's not happening. So, and and a lot of people use their calendars. I get it, but even just mundane tasks are in my calendar. So yeah, that's really how I've used technology. Yeah, it would be that
Yeah.
calendar. So
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think technology these days is everybody's best
yeah,
friend,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
especially somebody who has memory lapses and needs those daily reminders. So
Yeah.
that's great. Can you also share a little bit more? So, that we talked about the first time after the first concussion, you went to urgent care, but second time you did go to the ER, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, what kind of care did you get moving from ER into seeing your doctors regularly? And how did you work with your medical team um, to be able to really make quick progress?
Yeah. Okay, so I did with that second injury that following Sunday, I went to the ER. Again, I mentioned I don't remember that day, but I will tell you that I know that they were the ones that did my CT scan. They were the ones that referred me to the concussion clinic, Inova Concussion Clinic here in
Mhm.
Loudon, where I received good care there. And that's also where I went for physical therapy and that sort of thing. All of my rehab was there. So that really was instrumental in getting at least most of what I needed. Didn't get everything I needed, unfortunately, but part of that gets back to what I said earlier. You don't know what you don't know. So there were a lot of things that if I could go back, I would change, but I didn't know what was going on really. I mean, it was a head injury. So
Right, right. When it came to your doctors, it sounds like, you did have a pretty good experience. Thank you
yeah.
for, mentioning that the Innova Head Injury Clinic was
Mhm.
very helpful. What do you wish doctors really understood more about when it comes to concussion?
I really wish someone had taken me aside and said, okay, you know, this is serious. This may have long lasting repercussions. Your life is now changed. You need to have someone help you on a regular basis with everything from paying your household bills to
Mhm.
remembering what appointments you need, everything. Because honestly, Donna, I was lost. I mean, really lost. And even my closest, my loved ones didn't realize it. That I was forgetting to pay bills, that I was just all over the place trying to navigate what was right in front of me. So that's that's really that would be my my biggest advice. Get yourself some sort of an advocate, whether it's a family member or a
Mm,
professional advocate.
okay.
So,
So did one of your family members become your advocate? Like at some point, somebody must have noticed, right, that you weren't paying bills or
right,
things
right.
weren't getting done. Somebody must have stepped in.
Interestingly, that took quite some time
Mm.
because I was so good at putting on a nice smile and pretending like everything was fine.
Hmm.
And so I would say this is off the top of my head because I didn't jot this date down, but I would say it took about a year.
Yeah.
And by the time that 1 year rolled around, I was in over my head, really. I was trying to navigate applying for disability. I was trying to navigate all these doctor's bills I suddenly had. Um, I couldn't work anymore, that type of thing. So there was a lot around me. And of course, life goes on. You've got 3 kids and they've got all sorts of stuff going on. That's still moving.
Sure. And mom always wants to be mom and in charge and
Right.
in control and
Right. So
hmm
it was tough. It was really tough. And I was really grateful. Well, two people in my life. One is my brother. My brother really stepped up and helped me financially to get through things. And then I have a cousin who helped organize finances and things like that. Um, and so I was very blessed. And it's not a day goes by still where I think to myself, if it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for my family, I
Right.
probably would have ended up in a homeless shelter somewhere because I couldn't pay my bills.
Did they help you get your disability insurance taken care
Yes,
of as well?
every yes. Well, yes, most of it. As you know, that there is a huge wait for that type of thing.
Right.
So, and when you have a brain injury, everything seems like it takes forever anyway because you have no concept of time. So, seemed like a very long time to me, but apparently it was a year before things started kicking in. So,
Like your advice is, to make sure that there is somebody, particularly a family member, close friend, if there isn't a family member, maybe it's a colleague from work or a neighbor, but somebody really does need to step in with those reminders and to recognize if things might be falling through the cracks and to
right,
take quick action.
right, and I would definitely say don't pretend that you're fine because I did a lot of that. I still do from time to time. So,
hmm Totally get that.
yeah.
So let's switch gears a little bit. You've been talking about kind of what happened at home and your family, but there's the other side, which was your work. How did that unfold? What happened when you went back to work and said, I have a concussion. My
Yeah.
life has changed.
Yeah. Well, I wish I had said that when I went back to work. I went back to
Mm,
work thinking, I think I could do my job. I think I'll be okay. Um, so I went back to work on a part-time basis and it was just a mess. I didn't, my first clue should have been that when I got to work and I didn't know where anything was, couldn't remember. Um, I thought, this isn't a good sign. Um, so I went back to work, I want to say for about 2 weeks, and then that's when I stopped completely. And unfortunately, I was never able to go back to my job, to my career. I ended up doing something completely different. So, but yeah, I went back too soon again, because I just didn't realize the extent of my illness. Even though I had been living with it for a few months, I just didn't realize. And I just wanted to get back to normal. I just wanted to go back to work and my activities. And I mean, who doesn't, right? I mean, and I loved my job and I just wanted to go back to normal.
Still during the pandemic.
I'm sorry?
That was still during the pandemic, right?
Correct, correct. So I
So you
was
were working from home.
actually, I was working in
Yeah.
person.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah, I was going in person.
Mm,
So yeah, it was tough. It was
yeah.
really tough. So I couldn't remember how to do my job and that was super frustrating. And then I couldn't well, anyway, and then when I did stop working, the next big obstacle was navigating disability again. Because at this point I told them I was going back to work now. Okay, I'm not. And I still didn't have anyone helping me yet. So I was doing it on my own. And I remember I had a box underneath my desk, and I still have that box where every bit of paperwork, every bit of documentation related to my illness, I would put in that box. And really, I think I was hoping someone's going to come and take that box and they're going to help me sort this out someday. And that's exactly what happened. So
Well,
that's
that's good to know.
yeah.
So you ended up leaving that job because it
Yes.
wasn't working out.
Right.
And how long was it between that time and when you got a new job?
2020, let's see, now it's 2025. So it must have been 2023 that I went back to, I mean, not back to, started a new job. Date recall is really tough for me,
Yeah,
by the way, in case you haven't noticed.
I
I mean,
have.
I even had to just stop and think, what year is
Hmm.
it? Okay, it's
Hmm.
2025 now, right? So I want to say it was probably 2023 that I was given the opportunity to start a new career. And that has really been tremendous for me.
So tell us a little bit about what makes that job successful for you.
Um, 100% the CEO of my company. Okay, she is absolutely wonderful and fantastic. And she is very understanding of my limitations and my strengths, really. So uh, I know initially when she mentioned it to me, I was very apprehensive. I'm like, I don't know if I can do this kind of work. And she's like, don't worry, I'm going to teach you. I can't tell you how many times she said that to me. I'm going to teach you. Don't worry. So really, I owe it to her. Now, I won't say that I'm, her number one employee or anything like that, but um, she's just been so incredibly understanding of my limitations, and I'm really blessed in that regard. So, and I do really enjoy my job, even though it's completely different than what I used to do. I really enjoy it, and I enjoy learning it, learning new things in it. So that's been great.
Yeah. What kind of tools do you use to support your everyday life at work?
Same thing in my home activities. That is calendars, sticky notes, lots of reminders, that sort of thing. I mean, right now, as I'm talking to you, I've got stickies all around my screen on things that I have to do, and little reminders, do this, do that. And they're all work related because they're on my work laptop. So I kind of sort through those stickies. Home reminders are on a separate desk, and then on my work desk and work laptop are work reminders. So
Yeah.
that's just so important for me, and it's the way I navigate my life is through
Yeah.
these reminders, sticky notes especially.
Well, I had the pleasure of meeting your boss, the CEO of your organization. That's how you and I got to meet.
Yeah, that's right.
And she is extraordinary, and I'm so grateful to her for being somebody who just kind of naturally understood that you were struggling, that you
Yeah,
needed support and help. And she really stepped up to support you.
yeah.
Not every boss is like that. What advice would you want to share for somebody else who, like you, has experienced concussion or some other form of brain injury, they're struggling on the job? How would you recommend they approach, if they don't have that boss like yours, how
Yeah.
might they approach their boss and say something that is meaningful and yet kind, but could really help their boss to better understand what their needs are if they just didn't have that ability to see or notice what was going on?
Right. So I would strongly advise anyone to tell their boss what's going on, as well as put it in an email, um, two places, because it's so important, to voice your, don't pretend you're fine, because I know we all want to do that. So we all want to just say, how are you? I'm fine. So tell them what your struggles are, tell them what your limitations are, uh, and also put that in an email. And if depending on the size of your company, CC your HR department as well. It is really crucial to do that, not only to cover yourself, but to make sure that you're communicating your what's going on. Don't hide it. This is not something to hide. Whether you think they understand it or not, they probably don't. They probably think, I don't know what she's talking about. She looks great. So, and I've had people actually tell me that, say, what do you
Sure.
mean? So people just they don't get it. And That's just the nature of the illness. So,
Yeah. Disabilities can be some of the most challenging because you're
oh
right.
yeah,
People look at you and they just see somebody who looks so typical and managing their day, but they don't necessarily know what effort it might have taken you to get up that day, get out of bed,
yep,
make your
yep,
coffee, take a shower, drive or get transportation to work, to stay organized
yep,
throughout the day. I know you and I talked a little bit about some of that technology at work as well that can be so helpful.
yep.
We have things now like Zoom or other products that can record conversations, help us take notes if that's a challenging thing. Like I know a lot of people with concussion might be mixing up words
Yeah.
or struggling, as you said, to remember dates or times. Do you use any of those technologies during your day to record conversations or keep your calendars straight and all of those things?
I do. And actually, as soon as you mentioned recording things, I don't do it as much anymore, but I always record doctor's appointments and I'll ask them, do you mind
Mm,
if I record this? Because I will forget.
mhm.
And I'll record them and I'll take notes as well. I always go
Right.
in with a notepad of questions, which I guess everybody should do when they go to the doctors anyway.
Right.
Um,
That's something that I always tell everybody, either
yeah,
bring somebody with you or take notes because so many times we're just so in the moment and might be hearing some news that is either confusing or upsetting. So to have
yeah,
somebody else who listens or takes notes for you is a really important thing.
right. And, and someone, a lot of people that have had a concussion are not used to having to do that. I know I wasn't. I was so sharp before my accidents. So I learned this as I went along. And again, it gets back to I wish somebody had just taken me aside that first day or once I came to, just said, okay, life has now changed. You need to, use sticky notes. You need to use reminders on your phone. I figured that out as I went along. So
The $1 million question. Are you back out on the ice?
absolutely not. I will never skate again. I actually avoid anything that could risk a head injury to the extent that I can. I mean,
Sure.
I'm not wearing a helmet in the car or anything, but I won't get on a bicycle. I won't rollerblade. I'm even a bit afraid to go hiking because I've attempted it and I lose my footing sometimes.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm very careful. I'm unfortunately not much of a swimmer. The doctor said, many doctors have said, oh, yeah, you could go swimming. Well, too bad I can barely swim, So,
Can
but
always learn.
yeah, this is
Um,
true. So,
But
no, I
what
avoided.
did your doctors share with you? I mean, were they adamant about, listen, you are more unstable at this point because of two concussions.
Mhm.
Often that could mean there could be a third or more. So
Yes.
we highly recommend, like, how did they express all of that to you? How strict were they?
If the doctor told me early on to limit my physical activity. I don't remember that. It's very possible that the doctors did, but I have a pretty strong memory about 4 or 5 months into my injury of a doctor saying, you can't get on the ice ever again. You can't ride a bike. That's too risky. You could hit your head. And I said, well, what if I have a helmet on? No, absolutely not. Skiing, can't ever ski again. Not that I was much of a skier, but I so that was really it was upsetting for me. But there's lots of other stuff you can do without risking a head injury.
Sure.
So, but yeah, it was at least several months that I remember someone telling me you better avoid the ice now. So
So you were very generous with your time today and doing this podcast with us and sharing information. What made you feel like it was really important to do this today? Not everybody is going to want to do something like this, but you did. Tell me why.
I don't wish this journey on anyone. I really mean that. It's not an easy journey. People don't understand it. uh, your loved ones may not even understand it. So if I can help just one person, then mission accomplished. So, really, honestly, I do mean that from the bottom of my heart because this is not an easy thing. It really isn't. So,
Thank you.
sure.
Any other pieces of advice that you would want athletes, parents, coaches, hockey coaches, or, any other pieces of advice you would want to share with them?
Treat a head injury with all every precaution you can take. If an athlete falls and can't walk, you're going to take them off the ice or you're going to take them off the field. They're not going to play the rest of the game, right? That's how we should treat head injuries. Um, so now that being said, my son does play ice hockey. I have a 16-year-old son that plays ice hockey. I We are very blessed to have a hockey club that pays an enormous amount of attention to safety. Um, so it is that club, and it's one of the few clubs in this area that treat it with a huge priority. And so if a child goes down on the ice, they're pulled from ice, they're tested right there. Uh, on something called the King Divic test. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but we have a baseline on that child, and then they need to actually be cleared by a doctor in order to come back. So that's huge. And my son would tell you I'm like a police officer when it comes to that. I'm like, anytime there's someone with a head injury, I'm like right there, standing there.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, but my son does still play.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, I know as parents, we want to wrap our kids in bubble wrap and make sure that they're safe at every moment.
yeah,
But as you pointed out, that's not the reality. And
right.
we all want to do fun things and be part of the sports culture if that's of interest to us. So we want to do it safely. We want to do
Yeah.
it with the proper protocols. And I really appreciate that you called all of that out. And I'm thrilled to hear that where your son is playing is following all of the best protocols and able to spot something when it happens
Yeah.
and do the right thing.
Well, I just wrote something down that you said, and that's sports culture, because that's huge.
Mhm. Yeah.
For a parent to say, well, what is this particular
Hmm.
club's sports culture? What is their safety protocol? It's huge.
Right.
And as I said, I know other local ice hockey teams, and I know how they handle these things, and they don't handle it, as far as I'm concerned, with the care and safety that they need to, with regards especially to concussion. So
Well, I think during Concussion Awareness Month, that was just, a brilliant thing for you to share. Not every sports team follows the proper protocols or takes it to the highest level possible.
right.
And we do know when we say sports culture that there's lots of different things. We've seen this in the football industry and certainly in hockey and many other sports. And we here at Brain Injury Services, of course, want every team, every school, every professional organization, wherever it comes to sports, to be using the strictest of protocols. But I'm so glad today that you were able to talk about, that raising that awareness and advocating for better concussion care by making sure that people know that if you've had an injury, don't just go to an urgent care, go to some place, either the ER or a place that specializes in concussion and head injury. They really know what they're doing and can help that individual to get the proper care as quickly as possible.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
wonderful. Well, Lisa, I really want to thank you today for sharing your story with honesty and with such great courage. You are just a joy and a pleasure to talk with and to
Oh,
work
thank
with.
you.
And we really appreciate your taking this time. Raising awareness, as I said, and advocating for better concussion care is critical. And we thank you for doing that and for joining us during this really important month of September, where we do pay attention to concussion and all kinds of brain injury. I do want to remind everybody that for more information, you can find us at braininjurysvcs.org. We are here in Northern Virginia to help support people with brain injury of all types, as long as you are in Northern Virginia. We are here to support you and help you on your journey to recovery. Um, we are able to provide our services for free. However, your donations to brain injury services does help us to do more and to do better. So we appreciate that if that is something that you are able to do at this time or perhaps in the future. Stories like Liza's remind us that concussion recovery is not always visible, but it's very, very real. And with the right support, people can rebuild their lives and to thrive. Liza, you are thriving, and I'm so happy for you. And I think together we will hopefully see more people be able to thrive just as you have. Thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you for
This has
having
been the
me.
Brain Injury Awareness Project.
Thank you.